evening, I'm Cathy Lewis, and here's what matters. Democrats are headed home after their candidate accepted his party's nomination last night. And while Monday is a holiday for most, it's a work day for Republicans, the first day of their national convention in Minneapolis. Lisa Godley reports that in this year's presidential race, the party faithful plan to keep Virginia right where it's been for more than 40 years, firmly in Republican territory.
Dozens of John McCain supporters recently gathered at this home in the Western Branch section of Chesapeake to show their support for the man they believe should be the next president of the United States.
Is it that maverick spirit, a little rebellious streak? What readies a man to lead this nation? Is it his principles, the willingness to stand up and fight for his convictions? Is it his life experience? Most certainly, it's a matter of the heart.
Christy Craig, an alternate delegate to the Republican convention, hosted the event tagged as McCain Nation. In addition to food, fun, and fellowship, volunteers and McCain supporters gathered to watch small snippets of the life of John McCain.
A rocket was fired across the flight deck from an F-4, and it hit, there was a F-4 Phantom, and it hit the fuel tank and went through the fuel tank underneath my airplane. As you can see in the film, I went off the end of the refueling probe. The A-4 Skyhawk sits at an angle and rolled through the fire and went across to the other side of the flight deck.
He is a true American hero. He gave his almost all for this country. He spent a lot of time in the Hanoi Hilton, keeping his patriotism high and the morale of the fellow prisoners high. He has nothing but my absolute admiration, and I cannot wait to cast a vote for John McCain to be our next president.
Most gathered at the McCain Nation event won't be attending the convention in Minneapolis, but you wouldn't know it based on their enthusiasm, as Craig read a letter from McCain.
I have been blessed to serve my country for many years, and with your support, I will have the honor of serving our country a little while longer as your next president of the United States.
This is Craig's first convention, and she can't wait.
We're solid in backing McCain, unlike the Democrats, where now I've seen the paper where a lot of people now are going to try to cast votes for Hillary. We have one candidate. So you go there and it's just kind of ceremonial. It's being a part of the democratic process, whether you're Republican or Democrat. It's just an awesome feeling. It's great.
This is not the time to send people to Washington, D.C. that don't know anything about national security or foreign policy. And that means, that's right, Barack Obama is not going to be elected President of the United States. John McCain is going to be elected President of the United States.
The road to the Republican convention is paved with a lot of hard work by a lot of volunteers. Volunteers like Mickey Miller, who spent hundreds of hours encouraging people to read the literature and register to vote.
You've got to be hanging out there, you've got to be listening, and you've got to think for yourself. Because if you think for yourself, you can make clear choices. You can say, these are people I'm imploring to work for me. This is a job interview, folks. That's all it is.
And like many, Miller says she'll be watching and waiting, not only to see John McCain accept the nomination, but to learn who he'll choose as his running mate.
And I'm going to be all about it. I mean, it's going to be like watching the Olympics again, So I'm excited about it.
For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
I tell you, between the Olympics and the conventions, I feel like I'm not going to get a full night's sleep till Thanksgiving. We're glad to have retired Congressman G. William Whitehurst with us tonight to talk about the conventioneering and what the race looks like in the Commonwealth. Thanks for being with us tonight. And Gary Byler joins us as well. He will be there in Minneapolis, and he's a delegate to the convention. And joining us from the basement of the General Assembly building in Richmond, where he's doing the people's business, Delegate John Cosgrover represents the 78th District. He's there in Richmond today looking at some issues on some subcommittees that he's working on, and we'll talk with him in the course of our program as well. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Congressman Whitehurst, you've been down this road a time or two, I suspect.
Well, as a matter of fact, I must make an admission. The only conventions I attended were after I left Congress.
Really?
Yes, I was moonlighting over at Channel 13, and Jane Gardner and I covered the Democratic Convention in Atlanta in '88. and then the Republican convention in New Orleans. So I went strictly as an observer and thoroughly enjoyed the experience.
But so that was after you were a congressman?
I retired in January of '87. This was the following year.
And I guess, so was there a convention in there that you could have gone to?
Yes, I could have gone in the past. Gary Byler, as a matter of fact, was here and was quite willing to push me at the time Reagan ran. I was for Bush, but everybody else was for Reagan in the 2nd District.
I see.
But I decided not to go. And in retrospect, I think I got a better view as a nonpartisan than if I'd gone simply as a delegate and gotten involved in the heart of it.
So as you look at the convention, and my goodness, now we have this sort of wall-to-wall coverage experience. If you're looking for it, it's available for you on cable, and certainly every night this week and every night next week. WHRO will be covering the conventions. What goes on behind the scenes, as you observed as in your role, that we might not see taking place before the television cameras?
If there were a real contest for the second spot, as there was, let's say, when it was rumored that Reagan was going to pick Ford in 1980, which brought real drama to it, I think that would be worthwhile and really be newsworthy. But the vast majority of voters, in my judgment, don't pay an awful lot of attention to the planks in the platform. They truly don't. The last time it was of any significance was 1948 when the Civil Rights Plank was adopted and the Dixiecrats walked out and nominated Thurman. So I don't think there'll be a fight there. Now, the Democrats obviously had this business about the Hillary Clinton supporters making a statement, to put it mildly. The Republicans don't confront anything like that. I'm going to be real curious to see who McCain picks as a running mate, and that might bring some drama to the convention. But I'll yield to Gary on this. He's going out there.
Yeah, it's a great point, and we should note that as we are recording this, Senator McCain has not named a vice president. If luck holds, you know, he won't do that until Saturday morning, but we know he's planning to do that on Friday. So we should just note that as this program airs, that pick may have been made. Gary Byler, how do you think that's going to work out?
Well, this will be my 5th national convention, and let me tell you that there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, particularly in the Virginia delegation where we have an election every year. It is traditional that the folks running for lieutenant governor and attorney general and governor are posturing, to say the least, at the national convention. This year it appears that with the top of the ticket settled that we'd be looking at the attorney general's race. But there's a lot of maneuvering that goes into the future. Politics is always about tomorrow, not about yesterday, particularly if it's played right. And we'll have a lot of activity in the Virginia delegation. As well, on a national level, for leadership of the conservative mantle, between Mike Huckabee and Governor Romney, regardless of the outcome of this campaign, there's a vacuum in the national conservative leadership, and that's going to be fought out at the national convention.
And as you name some of those possibilities, and there's certainly others that have been brought to the fore, I hear Joe Lieberman's name discussed as well. Is there one that you think would be better than all the rest? Well,
I'm going to be a homer here and tell you that Eric Cantor would be my pick. Eric is a very articulate congressman. He is number 3 in the leadership and has done an outstanding job nationally speaking on behalf of the party. And I think that Eric could bring a lot of support not only in Virginia, which the Obama campaign has designs on, but also in critical states like Florida. I think Eric Cantor would add a lot to the ticket, and to the extent the campaign is asking for my advice, that's the name I'm giving him.
That's the one you'd give him. Deputy Whip is the position I think he holds?
That's correct, and it is a really critical position behind the scenes. You don't see Eric in front of the TV cameras grabbing the spotlight, but he does the work and he has the bona fides when it comes to domestic and international policy. And he's so articulate. He's one of those rare politicians like Governor Reagan, President Reagan, who you can tell he means what he says. The sincerity is apparent.
Yeah. It's such an interesting district, too. It goes from somewhere up around Orange County, Manassas, and sort of does a crisscross across the state diagonally down around the Tappahannock area. It's a very interesting district.
Well, that was done originally to try to end George Allen's political career, but that's another story.
Another story for another day. Go ahead.
I'm curious about this because what kind of a national name and image does he have?
Well, he doesn't have much now, but if he was nominated vice president, he would immediately. I think what he adds to the ticket, not only is he articulate and would spread the message, but he helps here in Virginia, and I think he helps in Florida. Of course, Congressman Cantor is a member of the Jewish faith, and with Governor Spitzer now having torpedoed his own career, I would love our party to be the one to put the first Jewish person in the White House. And Eric Cantor, I think, would give us that edge.
Delegate John Cosgrove from Richmond, thank you again for being with us on a day when I know that you've been dealing with a number of committees that have to do with privatizing ports and the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. So I know it's not a huge stretch for you to look at all of these national issues, because in the report that Lisa Godley just did, you gave a very ringing endorsement of your party's nominee. When it comes to that number 2 spot, do you have someone that you particularly like for that spot?
Well, first of all, let me say, Kathy, thanks for letting me be on the show, but if nominated, I will not accept. And, you know, if elected, I'll probably serve. But no,
you heard it here first.
Yeah. I will say that I think that Mitt Romney is probably the smartest pick. I would agree with Gary that Eric is an exceptional legislator and would make a great vice presidential candidate. However, I also agree with Dr. Whitehurst that Eric has very little in the way of national recognition. I think that'll probably change in the future. But Governor Romney certainly is very articulate. He's just a wonderful man, very conservative, and I think it's very important that Senator McCain bring that to the ticket. We all know that people really are most interested in the presidential candidate, but rounding out that ticket I think is important, and I hope that he'll choose Governor Romney.
Delegate Cosgrove, you know, one of the things that we know, and certainly it's been all over the news in the last week or so, is, and we talked about it a moment ago, is that the Democratic Party believes that Virginia is one of those states that it is going to focus on, that it believes that it can carry in the next election. So as you look at this state and at this campaign, what do you think the Republican Party has to do to make sure that that 40 years becomes more?
Well, first of all, I think I'm looking forward to being at the convention. I'm a delegate as well, and certainly looking forward to casting my vote for John McCain. And I think it's important to understand that John McCain just needs to stick to his conservative message. He needs to just campaign as John McCain. Barack Obama is one of the most liberal candidates that the Democrats have put up in quite some time. And I do not think that's going to play well throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, we've had different elections, statewide elections, where the Democrats have succeeded, but I don't think it's been too much based on their message, but on just maybe some campaign gaffes. And I will say that I think that Senator McCain has a very good chance of keeping Virginia, and we're going to do everything we can to help him do that.
One of the things that I heard this week in some of the Democratic convention coverage was an interview with Governor Kane, and I can't remember who the interviewer was, but they said, look, you know, when you look at the Commonwealth, this interviewer posed the question to Governor Kane, and he agreed that it may come down to Hampton Roads, that really that may be where this race is either won or lost, depending on your perspective. Are there issues here in Hampton Roads? Is there something about this electorate that you think it requires special attention?
Well, certainly I think that Senator McCain goes in with a distinct advantage in Hampton Roads because of our military population. You know, Senator McCain's military career is just a fabulous story, and courage and integrity and honor and hope. And I believe that he goes into this election with Hampton Roads population truly respecting him for what he's done in the past and what he can do in the future. I think that the Hampton Roads could be the make or break area for the Commonwealth. And Senator McCain needs to play to our area. I think it's important that he tout his military career and the experience that he's had in Washington. You know, he's had tremendous experience with the military and funding the military and keeping our nation strong. And he needs to continue that message in Hampton Roads.
Gary Byler, we were talking just a moment ago, and you said that you were hearing, and we certainly read about it in the media as well, about the possibility of Senator McCain coming out and saying, look, I only want one term here. This will be a one-term deal.
Yeah, Kathy, and I don't know that that's going to happen, but I tell you the contrast with Senator Obama is stark. Senator McCain is truly about service, and it's not all about John McCain. Obviously, you have to have some ego to run for the highest office in the land. But in comparison with Barack Obama, I think it's stark. And I think that Senator McCain is serious about wanting to serve his country one more time, whether that's 4 or 8 years, but that it really is to him about the future of the country as opposed to a personal ambition. Now, I supported Governor Romney in the nomination battle and would be very happy to have him on the ticket. But let me add one thing about Hampton Roads issues, and that is, I think, energy. With our ports and Norfolk Southern being based here, we are particularly sensitive to energy issues. And the Democrats' abandonment of the issue, no nuclear, no drilling, no coal gasification, is just absolutely untenable. And I suspect between now and November, we're going to see him switching some of those positions, particularly House Speaker Pelosi. Their only solution is for us to go away, to quit using the energy. And to me, that's amazing. When I served in the Senate with Senator John Warner, that's when they basically shut down the nuclear industry in this country. You know, the George Washington had a 2-day fire on it. We run these nuclear power plants under salt water for decades without a problem. To not allow nuclear and other technologies has been a severe disservice to our country, and I think that in Hampton Roads, that's going to be a critical cutting edge. And the other thing, we have the advantage in Hampton Roads, and that is the benefit of a very popular incumbent Congresswoman. Thelma Drake, having represented Norfolk in the General Assembly for decades, has contacts that, quite frankly, transcend party lines. There are folks who are normally Democrats or independents who are leadership for Thelma Drake, not just supporters, but leadership. And I think whether it's Goodlatte in the mountain areas of the Virginia, Good in the South Side, Randy Forbes certainly in Chesapeake, I suspect that our congressional candidates will lead the ticket here in Virginia, and in the end, that will make the difference.
And yet there again in the second, your old district, Congressman Whitehurst, we hear that's another one that the Democrats have targeted and said, we think we can get that one too.
Well, Gary said it all just a moment ago. I don't really have a feel for it. And I think he has a much better feel, because when I retired from Congress almost 22 years ago, I walked away from all of it. And so I've not been involved with the party at all.
And you don't even watch conventions, I understand.
No, I don't. I saw 2 of them, and it was what I expected to see. Now, my friend here tells me that there are a lot of things going on. I didn't see it as an observer. No, I did not. But then I wasn't on the floor of the other convention, and so I acknowledge that there are things that do happen. But I think from an observer's point of view, it just looks like a lot of people there. Some speeches are made, and the partisans of both sides are cheering for them and so forth. I think what's really interesting to me is what's going to happen to the youth vote this time. And Obama has obviously inspired a lot of young people to come out and hear him, and they like him, they believe in change and so forth. But there's a big leap between going to a speech and voting in a primary and voting in a general election. And if you look at the past does not show sharp participation by young people 18 up to about 28 in voting. And I recall I was in the House when we lowered the voting age to 18. Right. And I was in the cloakroom that day. I'd voted, and 2 old-timers came in, and they were grousing about it. They said they'd voted for it, but one of them said, gosh, we could have Elvis Presley here. And I broke out laughing, and I said, well, compared to some of the people I've seen, he wouldn't be too bad. At least he can sing. And they said, what's the matter with you, Whitehurst? I said, nothing. What's the matter with you? I said, they don't vote. Yeah. I said at 18, they're interested in their schoolwork, hopefully. They're interested in who they're dating. I can get the car this weekend, this sort of thing. I said, but by the time they get to 30, they've got a mortgage. They're generally married and have children. Then they are concerned about who is taxing them, and will start to participate. And that's when the graph begins to rise. And that's been the pattern in the past. Now, this may be a different year, but it's one thing to go and vote in a primary, and the other in the general election, and you've got to not just energize them, you've got to organize them. And that's how it gets done. And if the Obama people will do this, they will have a whale of a lot of young people with them. But if they just think they're going to go anyway, don't depend on it.
It's such a good point, and one of the things that we know that's a big question mark in this race is there has been record voter registration, but there's not necessarily a sense that that will necessarily transmit to action at the polls. And you work with young people every day as a college professor at Old Dominion.
I do indeed, and the college students in the past, about 50% of them have voted. But there are many, many young people who are not in college in this country.
Fair enough.
And they're out there, they're thinking about other things as well. They're not energized. Maybe some of them attend these meetings, but I don't know what the count would be. But I think it can't just be college students he's going after. He's got to go after that young vote between 18 and 21 or 18 and 25. And he's certainly inspired a lot of them. He's gotten big crowds and so forth. It's something else, is to repeat what I said, that the precinct level, they've got to go and squeeze that vote like a lemon.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the youth here locally were energized by Dr. Ron Paul. I know in our own race, Jared Hendricks and Max Shapiro, some of the young people who are organizing for us now. And it's a challenge for us to keep that energy and motivation for Senator McCain. Here locally, we've been able to do it, but I won't mind telling you it's taken a lot of effort. But there is a lot of enthusiasm out there. We're trying to aggressively organize not only in the college campuses, but also in the high schools. One reason for that is the same reason that the cigarette companies would market to kids. It's hard to get a Winston smoker to switch to Salem. You got to catch him before you get the first cigarette. That was always Karl Rove's theory of politics too.
Wow.
We want to get these guys before they voted for a Democrat. It's a lot easier to get them the first time than if they've already affiliated with the party. So we're very aggressively trying to organize the youth. But as Dr. Whitehurst correctly points out, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
You have to make double the effort, but we believe it's worthwhile.
And Delegate Cosgrove, you know, this is a tough moment for your party because the president, unfortunately, at the moment, is not the most popular president there's ever been. It seems that Senator McCain has a bit of a tough road to hoe there in terms of trying to be respectful and yet also differentiate himself against a campaign that is very clearly sending the message that a McCain presidency will be 4 more years of George Bush. What advice do you have for the campaign about how to make that argument?
Well, I think it's important that Senator McCain just, again, be his own man. You know, he's already started a lot of the ad campaign about being a maverick, not just towing a party line. And he's going to differentiate himself from the current administration in many different ways. They have some similarities, they have some differences. But I think that Senator McCain really needs to compare himself to his opponent, Senator Obama. John McCain has a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge, a service to country, and in Hillary Clinton's words, Obama has a speech in 2002.
I bet we'll be hearing that at some point.
Well, probably so, and we should, because basically I've listened to Senator Obama, and it's nothing but a column of air. I mean, he's accomplished very, very little. He was a state senator in Illinois, and then a U.S. senator who spent most of the time in the U.S. Senate campaigning for president. So if you want to look at the accomplishments of the two different people, I think they are indeed very different. And I think Senator McCain definitely needs to tout his experience, some of the accomplishments that he's had as a legislator and as a military member, and just as a fine American.
Delegate Cosgrove, I want to thank you very much for taking time to join us. I know you're doing the people's work there in Richmond. Thank you for going down to that basement studio there and being with us today on What Matters. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kathy.
It's always good to talk with you. Gary Byler, have fun at the convention. I know you've got hard work to do, but I hope it's a good time for you. This is what number for you?
This is my 5th national convention.
Wow.
And thank you. I'll make sure we have some fun. I'm bringing my golf club.
Yeah, you should do a buy 4, get 1 free. Bill Whitehurst, thank you for being with us today. I would tell you we'll both be watching the convention, but I know you won't be, but I will be. There you go. And I'll be back in a moment with a final thought. Most youngsters in Hampton Roads head back to school Tuesday, and that has me thinking about this whole high school experience. Back in 1957, the Soviets launched the Sputnik satellite and shocked America by beating us into space. What followed was a national drive led by the president and the greatest scientists of the day, not just to study, but to revolutionize science education. The feds committed more than $1 billion to the cause, $1 billion at a time when a loaf of bread cost 19 cents. Labs were built and science became a hands-on enterprise. And that presidential promise to put a man on the moon came true 12 years later. Well, Sputnik isn't the only thing that was born in 1957. I know you won't believe this, but I too was born in that year. And so I am puzzled by the fact that my daughter, who will graduate from high school this June, has had an experience not significantly different than mine, save for computers and cell phones. There is a growing chorus of lawmakers and educators and employers who say it's time for a fundamental rethink of the high school experience, something along the lines of the Sputnik response. And that's just one of the questions we'll put to State School Superintendent Billy Cannaday when he joins us 2 weeks from now on What Matters. Now, if you have questions you want to pose, send us an email at whatmatters@whro.org or send us mail through the Postal Service at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23508. You can also call us at 889-9437, and you can see past editions of What Matters at our website, whatmatters.tv. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time for a look at the growth of the Hispanic population in Hampton Roads. We'll see you then.